Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a great guest on. And the reason why I say this is great is because, as all the viewers and the listeners know, my background is accounting and finance, so it's always a pleasure to talk to others who are in that field because this is something that impacts every business. No matter what type of business that you have, you're going to be impacted by accounting and finance. So I want to welcome to the show Lisa Niser. So thank you for coming on, Lisa.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we jump into your practice that you've been successfully running for 18 years, can you tell us a little bit about your background before you started your practice?
Absolutely. So, like most of us out there, my degree is not in accounting. I pivoted. Like, nobody knows at 18 what they really want to do. So, my first job, I was a shoe buyer for Marshall Fields, which was a big department store here in Chicago. And it's a woman's dream job to buy shoes for a department store. I'm like, who doesn't like that? But then they were bought out by Dayton Hudson, and I didn't want to move to Minnesota. So, I moved into the stores. And I really got my first eye-opening taste of what corporate life was like, because even though my department in the store was like very profitable, I had no turnover, I had great morale, they had to do cutbacks, and I was the newest person, and I lost my job. And I'm like, that's like, what? And I'm 23 years old making $23,000 living in the city. I'm like, what am I gonna
Wow.
do? Like, I don't want someone else to have that control over me. I'm like, I know I'm good. So I did some other retail stuff, and then I thought, gosh, you know what? This lifestyle is not so great because I'm working when other people aren't. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Now, I'm actually the third generation female in my family that's done taxes. So
Okay.
my grandma did taxes in the back of my grandpa's soda shop in Jersey when he was in the war. Dressed to the nines with her cigarette, doing the stuff. We have pictures. It's hysterical. And then my parents did it when they moved from the East Coast to Chicago. And so when I really sat down and thought about like what were the skills that I'm good at, that I like, that has a lifestyle that I want, I'm like, taxes is pretty good. People always need it. And so I kind of did what I recommend to people is I kind of did it on the side while I was still doing retail. Tried doing just as a prepare for one season. Then I went back and got my master's in tax here at DePaul. And then I'm a really good salesperson. So I schmoozed my way into Ernst& Young. I do not think you could do that today, but like they hired me as a paraprofessional and they're thinking, oh, you're retail. They're like, oh, you're really smart. I'm like, so I did that. And I did that. I had to switch firms a couple of times because I was brought in at such a low level as a paraprofessional. My income was less than people coming out of school.
Okay.
So the only way for me to make money was to jump firms, which was actually good because I worked for two big firms, Ernst& Young and PwC, but I also worked for a local Chicago-based firm. And I really, really liked working there because it was less bureaucratic. So if I had a really good idea, I could go upstairs, talk to the managing partner. It's like, okay, let's try it. So I kind of got that taste of being in a smaller business. Um, and I loved working with all the big Chicago families. I've always worked with individuals. And then for me, what happened is when I had my son, my husband and I were very good planners. Let's just put it that way. We saved my entire salary the year I was pregnant because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to want to do. You could have the best laid plans and you don't know what happens when that baby comes or if they're healthy or whatever. And so I actually set up the whole like part-time work and I had the nanny. Well, at a big firm, if you have like 4 days a week, you're still working 80 hours a week, only getting
Yeah.
paid for 4 days a week. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, start your own. We don't live in an expensive place, whatever. And so I went off on my own and I brought, I just networked, talked to a lot of people. And now it's been 18 years. My business is entirely built on referrals. I have tons of business because taxes are something everybody needs and they scare everybody. And I try and make it a lot more fun than I'm like, it doesn't have to be that scary. They're scared because they don't know about it. And
Yep.
we're not taught about it. So I'm like, oh, let's teach you. So I like it because like first of all, I love being an entrepreneur because I have control over my schedule and I can make as much money or as not as much money as I want. And I love it. So I love, especially a lot of my practice, I love working with other entrepreneurs because I want to give them what I have.
Mhm. Gotcha. Now, I mean, when you tell your story, I think about how much, emotion may have been going on at the time. I mean, you had a son, and then you're also making that decision to move from working for, someone else to working in your own business. Do you remember what some of the emotions or the feelings you were trying to work through to, to take that leap?
Well, it's definitely terrifying. I will tell you that having that nest egg of my salary saved for the entire year made a huge difference. Um, because we lived in a small apartment. My husband had a steady job. And, when you have a new baby, you're not spending much outside. So I think that definitely helped. Having my husband really supportive of it was huge. But I think also as a mom, it's really hard because you think you can have it all and you can't. But for my mental health, I knew I had to do something. I'm like, I can't just do this. So at the beginning, it was really a balancing act to learn how many clients should I take on? The first couple of years, and then I had a second kid. So like I didn't grow it as much as I could because for me, the priority was spending time with my family. And because we were so careful with our money, we were able to do that. I mean, we lived with two kids in a 2-bedroom apartment for 6 years. My
Wow.
second son slept in the front hall for a while, but it's a good story, right? They don't know, they didn't know how to walk upstairs when we moved to this house. It was pretty funny. I'm like, oh, I guess we've never had stairs, huh? But I think I was less anxious about it because we had done that thought planning. Um, and also, I knew I wanted that control over how things went. Um, Also, when I was growing up, my parents had a tax business, and my mom's parents had actually supported most of us, my family growing up. They went through the depression and then they were very successful. So they paid for everything for my mom and her sister. And then when my parents got married very young, they paid for their house, all the furniture, all my clothes. All her dad got very sick at the same time she wanted to get divorced and all the money went away. And I saw that she was kind of stuck and I'm like, I am never going to be stuck like that.
Mhm.
So that kind of stirred my entrepreneurial spirit of, I know I can take care of myself. I know I'm going to be okay. Um, and so I think that planner in me made it a lot less scary than it could be for some people. But I know you said you had done even yours on the side. I love that idea. I mean, some people unfortunately don't get that option, especially these days. People are like, oh, you lost your job. Or you get people that are middle-aged that lose their job because companies don't want to pay them that much. And it's hard to get another job at my age. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And so you have to go off on your own. So when I talk to people and try and teach them the importance of having that savings account, things happen. I mean, who thought this would happen this year? I mean,
Yeah.
like nobody did. And I'm like, I've seen it all happen. I mean, everything you think is going to happen, I've seen it all happens. And so I tell people all the time, one of the reasons I get less emotional about stuff is because I have the gift of seeing behind the facade of everybody. I
Mhm.
live in a very wealthy area in Chicago and probably the smallest house in here. And you see people that have 3 luxury cars and they're going on trips and their kids are going to private school. And I'm like, and I see that they have no investment income, the biggest mortgage you've ever seen, a nanny that they pay $100,000 to, $200,000 student loan, and you're like, yeah, I don't want like
Yeah.
it's not always what you think it is. And so having that has really helped me adjust my feelings and priorities and how I want to live. It's very few people have that insight.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Also, now, so there's something you mentioned about, being good at sales. And when you went into, having that background, which is not something that you really hear a lot of accountants say about themselves. So how was that process with, when you go out into your own business now, you're responsible for bringing in the client work. Like, how was it wrapping your mind around that or working through that?
It's funny. My business coach actually posted about this on LinkedIn this morning, and we talked about it how, even in an accounting firm, you start as like a worker bee. Well, the higher up you get, you don't do the work. You're a relationship manager, and everybody is a salesperson. I mean, we're all salespeople. Well, I've always been like really social, like I just like to talk. So it wasn't really an issue for me, but you really had to be very creative to get your name out there. because nobody knew who I was. So I was really creative. Like I would go to new moms groups and talk to them about like, okay, so here are some things to think about when you have kids, or do you want to stay at home? Or, because they're all going through the same thing I am. I'd go to real estate offices and talk to them about what it's like to be self-employed, or what are the tax implications of buying rental real estate, so that if they are selling to investment purchasers, they stand out. They're not like, I just going to sell you this because I want the commission. It's like, no, I want you to understand the cash flow of what's going on. I got a lot of business through that. And then I also did some like writing for different groups, and that generated a lot of business. There's a great parents network here in Chicago, and I did an article on the tax side of childcare, and then they have like a listserv. I'm telling you, Terrell, like it probably goes back 12 years. Like someone used me for nanny tax, and then they recommended me, and I've gotten so much business off of this listserv because you're not going to go like, well, now we don't have yellow pages, but we used to have, you're not going to find an accountant off of yellow pages. Yeah. I mean, your accountant knows everything about you, like everything about you. I know more than like everybody else out there. So you're going to ask for someone. And if you don't know anyone, you're probably going to ask another mom or something. I mean, it's crazy how much business I've gotten from that. So I was very creative in that. And I really try to help people that are entrepreneurs that I work with to try and be creative about it. I've really loved LinkedIn, since the pandemic. It's really shifted from just like a resume poster to a networking group. And I have met fabulous people who are interested in learning and creating and developing relationships. And it's been a wonderful one. It's been an emotional lifesaver for me during the pandemic. I'll tell you that. But, you really have to build those networking skills. It's funny, we can get into it. I started an arm of my business to teach about taxes, but I've also been in a women's networking group, and we learned people don't know how to network or sell. Like we're not taught that either. So I started classes on like how to do soft skills. I mean, people don't know how to do it. I mean, we're just not taught all these things that are really critical. And you're like, okay, let's just teach them.
Yeah, I can definitely second that, because I would say I left my full-time role back in March. And, when you're starting a new business, you have to, network is a very big part of it. And a lot of the local CPAs and even the fractional CFOs that I spoke with, they would go to like different networking events. But it's like now that we're in a pandemic and COVID's out there, those aren't happening as frequently. So it's like, what do you do? And I will say LinkedIn has been a huge attribute to helping me meet so many people. I mean, it's how you and I met.
It's great. I mean, it's great. And it's funny because, I don't know if you like the social selling index that tells you like how you use LinkedIn. It's not just your profile. It's not just your posts. It's, there's 4 different segments of it. And then they tell you like how you rank compared to other people in your industry, and then how you rank compared to other people in your network. Okay, even when I started, when my profile was like terrible, I know it, I was in the top 1% of accountants. So that says to me, accountants are not using this. This is a gold mine. This is great. So I'm trying to like fun tax posts, right? Well, now I have quite a following, which is fantastic, because my goal is like, I love doing, what I do, but tax season, as you know, sucks. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It sucks. It's March 1st to April 15th, and then a couple weeks in October. And I have clients that call me year round for stuff, but the bulk of the work is then, I'm like, that's miserable, right? So I love this teaching side. I love it. I get turned on, as you can tell. And so what I literally have been talking about it for at least 5 or 6 years. You can ask my networking group, is I want to start teaching classes, especially to entrepreneurs. And the pandemic kind of just gave me the in to do it. Well, like my goal is I'd rather have fewer clients during tax season and make up that difference doing teaching or speaking or something else. And so now I'm building this nationwide kind of reputation as a tax expert through LinkedIn, because I can connect with people everywhere. And it's been super fun for me. Like I just been having it because people are always amazed. They're like, God, you're such not a typical accountant. Thank God, we got to fix it. We got to fix our reputation.
We're definitely working on that. I mean, that's been one of those huge motivators that I had because I get that a lot when people find out that I'm a CPA and they're like, I would not have guessed that. I was like, well, why is that?
Because I don't have a pocket protector. Yeah. I'm like, I'm cool. And if you come during non-COVID to get your taxes done with me, you get to play with my golden doodle. So like you get the therapy dog with the tax return. How many accountants offer that, right?
Nice, nice. So when it comes down to your services, what are all the services that you provide?
So I just work with individuals and then any small businesses that report on a 1040. I do tax preparation. I will tell people that is the least important part of what I do.
Mhm.
Kind of like what we were talking about before. My analogy I came up with last week is your tax return should be equivalent to your annual review at work. So there should never be a surprise on that tax return. It should be a summation of discussions you had through the year. And if there were issues, it should have been brought up and given you a chance to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So the tax return really shouldn't be it. It should be the discussions, the planning, the where do you want to go? How can I help you like make choices that get you there? So yes, I do taxes for people. I do, any kind of individuals. And I only stick to individuals, one, because as you know, the tax code changes faster than you can blink an eye. And there's just too much to take, to stay on top of. And I like individuals. If you do a corporate tax return, you give it to someone, they're like, oh, thank God it's done. You help an individual, they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like I actually learned, like they're so grateful to you. And I love that. It just gives me such a like, oh my God, I made their life less stressful. It's great. But what I really like is the tax planning and the tax education. So for me, it's the tax return builds the trust. So then I can talk to them and teach them. So I just started actually a new arm of my business, an educational arm of it. I started my first class. I'm going to add some more classes, but my first class is what new entrepreneurs need to know about taxes.
Mhm.
And it is not to make you a tax expert. You do not need to understand. I actually think you should have an accountant and probably a bookkeeper or at least an accountant, but it gives you enough to understand how it's different than being an employee, how to set things up, what forms you're going to look for, what things are deductible and aren't, what are the categories on the form. So like you're setting your books up in the categories that are on the form. So it's really easy to have, easy to go back and be like, where'd that number come from?
Yeah.
It's over here. How do estimated taxes work? How do self-employment taxes work? Things like that. It's an hour-long program. And then right now it's live seminars. And then I have a Q&A session with it. I've had lots of people suggest to do it on demand, which I think I'm going to do.
Mhm.
I've had people say, I'm not sure if people are going to listen to a tax class on demand. It's like if you sign up for Wednesday at 7:00, you're like, I better show up Wednesday. So I played some money, But I think I'm going to do that as well for people that, in little 10-minute segments there so I don't lose
Gotcha.
people.
Gotcha.
But I'm very excited about it because especially now, so many people have had to pivot. And like I said before, like you have to be profitable to be able to stay in business and to continue to be your own boss. Well, you need to at least have some basic understanding of this. And it's a lot less scary if you know what's going on.
Yep.
Or at least, as I tell people, at least enough to know to ask your accountant questions. Be like, hey, I heard about that. Does that fit for me? I mean, I think everyone should. You're like, maybe it doesn't, but at least you asked about it. So
Absolutely.
I am very, very excited about that. I'm offering it at least once a week through the end of the year. And then I'm going to do some videotaping and put it on demand as well so that people can, look at it if they want to refer back to it. But I like the live one. I like to be able to answer questions and interact. And it's very fun. I put in some like fun quotes and fun tax jokes and little questions. It's like, okay, who's going to admit they have a shoebox of receipts? Let's go. Come on, my clients are very well trained. They don't do that.
Awesome. So where can people find you online or follow you on social media?
So LinkedIn is a great way. I share lots of tax information. I had a great series like things you think are tax deductible but aren't. That got a ton of discussions on it. I've been just, what are all the boxes on your W-2 mean? Nobody looks at the W-2. So that's a big one, and I love to connect with people. My education site is called Taking on Taxes Together. So it's takingontaxestogether.com. If you go to LinkedIn, the website's on there, so you don't even have to remember. But you might be on your own, but you don't have to do it on your own. You know what I mean? I'm here to help you. And then my regular business site is just my name, lisaniser.com. So it has just my tax business work. I'm trying to mesh them together, but I'm really good at what I do. I'm not the best at the technical side yet. So I'm still, I've been engaging experts to help me with that. So, it's definitely a learning process, but it's been really fun. And, as I tell people, it's like, you try something. If it doesn't work, you turn a little. If it doesn't work, you turn a little more, so I'm in the same boat.
Awesome. I like that approach. And, before we wrap up, one of the questions that I like to ask every guest that comes on is, when you think about, your journey of, where you've been, where you are now, and the just projection of where you're taking your business next, what's 2 pieces of wisdom that you would share with other entrepreneurs?
Well, I think I kind of talked about it a little, but the first one is, you don't have to do it yourself. So even if you think, oh, I don't have money, whatever, there is value to your time. And so having people help you with marketing or technology or accounting really does pay off, because you can spend your time on the stuff you're really good at. And people are like, oh, I paid you a lot of money to do my taxes. Yeah, because I know what I'm doing and I could do it in an hour. It would take you 20 hours. Couldn't you make money doing that? That is 10 times what you're paying me. People are so, oh, I have to do it all myself. No, you don't. You don't know it all. No one expects you to know it all. A successful person surrounds themselves with experts. Think about it, all successful athletes have multiple coaches. Yeah. That's a sign of success, not weakness. So I always encourage people, get experts. And then, of course, on the personal side, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, make sure you understand the money side of the business, and do not forget that your goal is to make money so you can stay doing this. So you need, even if you hate it, you got to spend some time on the money and tax side, because it's not going to work otherwise. So I'm happy to talk to everybody. You can message me. I can have a conversation just to talk to you about it. I have partners that, if you don't understand QuickBooks and you just want someone to set it up for you and show you how to use it, we can get you someone to do that. If you want someone to do it for you, I could do that. But at least get it set up properly and have a tutorial. You need someone with business insurance. You don't have to go searching. Use the people that are out there. People want to help you. They just, I really think everybody really truly just wants to help each other be successful. And there's the last thing, maybe it's a third one, but there's plenty of business for everybody out there. Do not worry what other people are doing. Think, what are there? Millions and millions and millions of taxpayers in this country. There's more than enough for all of us. Coach, there's more than enough. You don't have to be scared of other people. There'll be people for you, but you have to be patient. So it's been a crazy journey for me, but I just love it. And I know that other people can have this lifestyle that I now have. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty good. I kind of like this.
Awesome. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your story, talking about a topic that you and I both think is very vital for every business. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. It was a pleasure having you on.
Oh, thanks so much. It was a great conversation.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.